What if the billionaire who coldly signed your layoff papers was the same man who found you dying in the rain and took your child into his arms? Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories of love, regret, and second chances that just might change how you see people. Alan Hawthorne stared at the spreadsheet until the names blurred. On the wall of glass behind him, the city hung like a painting. Towers, lights, the river a dull silver ribbon. In here, everything was fluorescent and clean white walls. Chrome, the soft hum of air conditioning. On his screen, the columns were simple. Role, department, salary, status. And one more column, his CFO loved cost saving. We can shave another 6% if we push through this round, the CFO said, standing by the window with a tablet. We'll look lean going into the merger. Stronger on paper. The word paper hung in the air. Alan scrolled. Names. People he would never meet. Faces he would never see. Logistics temp. Warehouse. Angela Carter. The CFO read off. Short tenure. No dependents on file. Minimal severance. Alan's cursor hovered over the cell for a second longer than it should have. Angela Carter. Just letters. An entry. One of hundreds. His hand moved anyway. Click. Terminated. On the polished desk beside his keyboard, a silver frame face down, the black and white photo hidden. He never looked at it during meetings. Not when he was making decisions. Not when the old ache in his chest threatened to pull him backward into a night he couldn't change. Alan, the CFO prompted. He blinked, the name snapping back into focus. Proceed, he said. His voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. The CFO smiled. Satisfied. I'll have HR push the notices. When the office door finally closed behind him, Alan turned the frame over. In the picture, a young woman laughed at something off camera, hair blowing across her face. Sunlight caught the edge of her cheekbone. She was mid-turn, halfway between stillness and motion. Lena, you tell me I'm doing the right thing, he said quietly. Being practical, protecting the company. In his memory, her voice came back, clear and stubborn. No, it's set. I tell you to remember there are people on the other end of those cells. He set the frame down, face up, and looked away. The rain started just after dark. It came hard and fast, hammering the sidewalks, turning the streets into slick black mirrors. People hunched into their coats, umbrellas bobbing like dark flowers. At the bus stop 3 blocks from the hospital, the metal bench was slick and cold. A woman sat at one end, her coat too thin for the weather, hair plastered to her forehead. She held a little girl in her lap, arms wrapped around the small body as if that could keep the wind out. The girl's shoes were soaked. Her socks had gone from white to gray. Her fingers clutched a stuffed bear with one eye missing. Mommy, I'm hungry, the girl whispered. I know, baby, Angela said. Her voice shook. We'll get something soon. Her head throbbed. Heat pulsed behind her eyes. Her skin felt too tight. Fever pressing against her skull. The world tilted when she blinked. A bus roared past without stopping, water spraying off its wheels. She tightened her arms around Lisa. It hadn't always been like this. There had been an apartment once. Small, but theirs. A routine daycare drop-offs. Shifts at the Hawthorne Tech warehouse. Nights falling asleep on the couch with the TV still on. Then the email had come. Subject line company restructuring. She'd read the words 3 times before they sank in. Restructuring. Position eliminated. We appreciate your contribution. Contribution, like she'd been a donation instead of a person. The landlord had been sympathetic for about a week. Then the yellow slip slid under the door, and sympathy turned into deadlines. She'd tried other jobs, temp work, day shifts, anything. But the hours never quite covered the rent and the food and the medicine. When Lisa caught every cold that drifted through the preschool, the night everything had nearly ended, the knife had been cold in her hand. The bathroom tiles had blurred and she'd stared at her arm and thought, at least this will stop the questions, the calls, the feeling of failing every single day. Then Lisa's cry had cut through the haze. Mommy, just that? small and scared. Angela had dropped the blade as if it burned. She'd slid to the floor and sobbed until her chest hurt, holding her daughter like an anchor. Now, weeks later, her body was giving out. Rain trickled down her collar, cold against hot skin. Her vision narrowed. The bus stop, the street, the lights, all of it seemed to move away from her. "Mommy," Lisa said again, voice worried now. "You're shaking." "I'm fine," Angela lied. Her hands slipped. The world tilted harder. Down the street, a black Bentley rolled to a stop at the light. Inside, Alan sat into the back seat, phone screen lighting his face. His calendar pinged dinner with board member, review projections, Lena's anniversary. He closed his eyes for a second at the reminder. "Sir," the driver asked, "we're almost at the restaurant." "Fine," Alan said. A movement on the sidewalk caught the corner of his eye. A child, standing in the rain, tugging at the sleeve of a woman slumped on a metal bench. The child's hair stuck to her forehead. Her coat was too small, buttons straining. She waved a tiny hand toward the car, as if trying to catch the light. "Maybe that man can help us," Lisa said, more to herself than anyone. Angela's head lolled sideways. "Mommy," she didn't answer. Alan exhaled, impatient, ready to look away. The driver's foot eased off the gas. "Sir, looks like someone's—" "I see it," Alan said. His heart thudded once, hard. Rain, a woman, a helpless voice, a body tipping toward the ground. He was back in another night, another downpour. A phone call unanswered because he was in a meeting. The call he'd finally picked up. Lena's voice laughing. "Don't worry, I'll be behind you. I'll be home soon." Then the sirens, the hospital, the sterile hallway. "Do something now," a different voice said, "or spend the rest of your life watching this replay." "Pull over," he said. The driver blinked. "Sir." "Now," Alan snapped. The car eased to the curb. Before the driver could move, Alan had his door open, rain hitting him like a wall. He stepped out, shoes splashing in the water, coat soaking within seconds. Up close, the scene was worse. The woman's eyes were closed, lashes spiked with rain. Her face was too pale, lips chapped. The little girl clung to her, eyes wide with dread. "Mommy won't wake up," she said. "Please help her. Please." Alan crouched. He checked the woman's pulse with fingers that knew the motion from a first aid course he'd never expected to use. It fluttered under his touch, fast, weak. "Can you stand?" he asked the girl. She nodded, sniffing. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lisa," she whispered. "Lisa, I'm Alan," he said. "I'm going to help your mom." "Okay, you promise?" she asked. He hesitated. Promises were dangerous things. "Yes," he said. He slid one arm under Angela's shoulders, another under her knees, lifting her. She was lighter than he expected. Lisa scrambled to her feet, clutching the bear. The driver ran over with an umbrella, trying in vain to shield them as Alan carried Angela to the car. Water dripped onto the Bentley's leather interior. Alan didn't care. "Hospital," he told the driver. Now, the ER was too bright. The fluorescent lights made everything look pale and washed out. Nurses moved like a river, doctors barking orders, machines beeping. Angela disappeared behind curtains on a gurney, a nurse assuring them, "We've got her." Lisa sat in a plastic chair, shoes dangling, clutching the bear so tightly its remaining eye bulged. Alan stood awkwardly nearby, his expensive suit dark with drying rain, hair pushed back from his forehead. He had no idea what to do with his hands. He went to the vending machine just to have something to focus on, fed it crumpled bills, and came back with a small Hall juice box, crackers, a tiny pack of cookies with a cartoon animal on the wrapper. He held them out. Lisa eyed them suspiciously. "My mom says too much sugar is bad," she said. "Your mom is right," he said. "This is a medical exception." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. She took the juice. "Do rich people get lonely too?" she asked suddenly, straw between her teeth. The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask that?" he said. "You look desperate in their car," she said simply. "Like mommy, when she thinks I'm not watching." He didn't know how to answer that. "Sometimes," he said, "sometimes they do." A nurse approached with a clipboard. "Mr.?" she asked. "Hawthorne," he said automatically. "Alan Hawthorne." Her eyes flicked to his wetsuit, then back to the paper. "We need someone to sign consent for treatment," she said. "And there's the matter of billing. She doesn't have insurance on record." Alan reached for the clipboard. The name at the top of the form punched the air out of his lungs. Angela Carter. He felt his stomach drop. "Something wrong?" the nurse asked. "No," he said, but his hand shook as he signed it. The pen scratched across the paper. As she walked away, he pulled his phone out, thumb moving on autopilot, opening an HR app he hadn't meant to touch again today. He typed in her name. There she was, Angela Carter, logistics temp, terminated. Reason: restructuring. Final decision: owner, Hawthorne. His own name dovetailed under hers like a signature on a verdict. He stared at the screen until the words blurred. The woman behind the curtain, the one hooked up to monitors, the one whose child was watching him with two wise eyes. She wasn't just some stranger in his path. She was collateral. His collateral. A choice he'd made in a quiet office had rippled all the way here, to rain on metal, to a little girl begging a stranger to help. He closed the app, jaw tight. "To answer your question," he said quietly, not sure why he was speaking. "Yes, rich people get lonely." Lisa took a bite of a cracker, crumbs dusting her chin. "Maybe you need more people," she said. "Maybe," he said. A doctor appeared, pulling the curtain aside just enough to look at them. "She's stable," he said. "Severe flu, dehydration, exhaustion. We'll keep her overnight. She needs rest, and food, and less stress." His gaze moved to Lisa, to the stuffed bear, to the thin coat. "Does she have somewhere safe to go?" he asked. Alan looked down at the little girl. Lisa's hand slipped into his, small and trusting. "Yes," he heard himself say. "She does." Alan's house looked like it belonged in a magazine. Tall stone walls, iron gate, a drive that curved through manicured trees to a front door 2 stories high. Inside, the floors gleamed, the ceilings soared. The art on the walls was expensive and carefully curated. The kitchen could have serviced a restaurant. It had never felt more like a museum than it did now, with a tired nurse helping Angela through the doorway and Lisa clutching her bear at his side. "Are you sure?" Angela's voice was raw, barely above a whisper. We can find a shelter. I don't want to impose." "You need rest," Alan said. "Bon, shelters don't do rest very well." She blinked up at him, eyes hazy with fever and confusion. "Have we met before?" she asked. He swallowed. "Not properly," he said. "I'm Alan." "We crossed paths in an unfortunate way." It was the closest he could get to the truth without shoving it in her face. He led them down a hallway that seemed too long, past doors that had been closed for years, to a guest room that looked like it had never been slept in. Clean sheets, fluffed pillows, a window overlooking the back garden, where vines clung stubbornly to a long, unused greenhouse. Lisa ran to the bed, jumping once, testing its bounce. "It's soft," she announced. Angela sagged onto the edge of the mattress, shoulders drooping. "You can stay here tonight," Alan said. "Longer, if you need to. We'll figure the rest out when you're feeling better." Her fingers knotted in the blanket. "I can't pay you back," she said. He wanted to say, "You already have. All of this is more than I deserve." Instead, he said bitterly, "You don't have to. This isn't a transaction." And he left before she could argue, pulling the door softly closed. Downstairs, the silence felt thicker than usual. He moved through the kitchen mechanically, pulling ingredients from the fridge, chopped, boiled, salted. It had been a long time since he'd cooked for anyone but himself, and even for himself. Most nights, it had been takeout eaten over spreadsheets. The soup ended up a little too thick, a little too salty. He poured some into a smaller bowl, cooled it with a splash of water, and carried both upstairs on a tray. Angela was half reclining now, eyes open. Lisa sat cross-legged beside her, bear in her lap. "I brought food," Alan said, feeling awkward announcing it. Lisa's eyes widened. "Smells good," she said. Angela accepted the bowl with both hands. "Thank you," she said, for all of this. I don't understand why you're doing it, but thank you." Neither did he, but he knew he couldn't have walked away at the bus stop and slept that night. He sat on a chair near the window, the three of them in a triangle of lamplight. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. The greenhouse loomed in the dark, its glass panes dull, its inside overgrown and shadowed. Lena had loved that greenhouse. She'd filled it with plants that somehow had thrived even under his neglect. After the accident, he'd locked the door and never went back. He could see its outline now, a black shape against the lighter sky. "You live here alone?" Angela asked quietly. "Yes," he said. "Must echo," she said. He thought of the empty hallways, the nights with only the hum of the refrigerator for company. "Sometimes," he said. Lisa slurped a spoonful of soup. "We can talk," she said cheerfully. "Then it won't." He looked at her, at the way her feet barely touched the bed frame, at the bear sagging against her side. It was such a simple, childlike answer, and it was also the truest thing anyone had said to him in years. They stayed. What was supposed to be a night became a few days. Angela's fever broke slowly, then left her wrung out and pale. She slept late. She woke to sunlight filtered through curtains, instead of to the clatter of buses and the bite of wind. Lisa adapted faster. On the second morning, she came padding into the kitchen in her socks, hair sticking up in all directions, the bear tucked under her arm. Alan stood at the stove, trying to convince Eggs to behave. "Do you live in a hotel?" she asked, eyes wide at the marble counters and chrome appliances. "Something like that," he said, "except I do my own room service." She giggled. "Do rich people make their own burnt toast?" she asked. He looked down at the black-edged slice in the pan. "Apparently," he said. She climbed onto a stool at the island, swinging her legs. "Mom says you can tell if someone is nice by how they talk to people who have nothing," she said. "Is that so?" he asked, plating eggs that were not, strictly speaking, ruined. Lisa nodded solemnly. "Are you nice?" she asked. He hesitated. "I'm trying," he said. She seemed to accept that. Angela appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, moving carefully, like someone whose body was still remembering how to hold itself up. Her gaze took in the scene, the eggs, the toast. Lisa perched at the counter and something soft flickered in her expression. "You didn't have to cook," she said. "I did," he replied. "I was hungry too." It wasn't the whole truth. He'd cooked because the idea of them going hungry under his roof made something in his chest twist painfully. He'd cooked because the sound of another chair scraping on the floor, of another voice saying good morning, made the kitchen feel less like a sterile showroom and more like a place where people lived. After breakfast, Lisa explored. She padded through the vast living room, peeking behind couches, opening empty cabinets, tapping the grand piano keys with one careful finger. She stopped at a door that opened onto a small hallway leading to the back of the house. At the end of it, a glass door showed an overgrown greenhouse, silhouetted against the gray sky. "What's that?" she asked. "Just an old garden," Alan said, voice clipped. He moved to shut the door. "Can I see?" Lisa asked. "No," he said, sharper than he intended. She flinched. Angela, watching from the doorway, noted the way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes darted away from the greenhouse as if it might hurt him if he looked too long. She said nothing. But later, when he went back to his computer and his calls, she found the side entrance that led to the greenhouse herself. The door was stiff with disuse, but it opened. Inside, the air smelled of damp earth and dust. Dead leaves carpeted the floor. Strangling vines clawed at cracked planter boxes. A few stubborn ferns clung to life in the corners, their green dulled but not gone. Angela rolled up her sleeves. She needed something to do that wasn't thinking. She picked up a broken clay pot, set it aside, pulled yellowed stalks from soil, feeling the ache in her muscles, the pull in her healing skin. Each plant she threw out felt like shedding a layer of heaviness. She found packets of seeds in a rusted tin past their printed date, but she knew from experience that sometimes things grew anyway. When Lisa patted in, eyes wide at the glass, Angela smiled. "Want to help me make this place pretty again?" she asked. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. They worked until their fingers were dirty and their clothes smudged. From the house, Through a window, Alan watched. Lena's laughter echoed faintly in his memory, mixing with Lisa's brighter giggles. He could have gone out there. He didn't. Not yet. Oh. The discovery happened on a Tuesday. Angela had been looking for extra blankets. The house, for all its grandeur, had cold corners. She opened closets, checked linen cabinets, found shelf after shelf of things that had never been used. In a small storage room off the home office, an old filing cabinet lurked in the shadows. She tugged a drawer open. Papers slumped forward, weights of forgotten decisions. She wasn't snooping, she told herself, just looking for a blanket. Then she saw her own name. It leapt off the page like a sting. Angela Carter, logistics temp, terminated. Her heart stuttered. She lifted the sheet with shaking fingers. At the bottom of the page, under a neat block of text about restructuring and organizational priorities, there was a signature. Alan Hawthorne. For a second, the room spun. Her fingers tightened on the paper. She remembered the email, the landlord's face when he'd said, "I'm sorry, Angie, but I can't wait." The night in the bathroom. She remembered the bus stop, the rain, the way Lisa had tugged on a stranger's coat and said, "Maybe that man can help us." All this time, the man who had helped them off the sidewalk, the man whose guest room she'd slept in, the man who made awkward eggs and burnt toast and filled water glasses without being asked. He had put her on this path. She'd known, intellectually, that some executive somewhere had signed off on the layoffs. But the distance between executive and man handing you a bowl of soup had felt immense. Now the distance collapsed. She looked down at the paper again. Terminated. By his hand. A faint scar on her wrist tingled as if the skin remembered. She folded the paper, slid it into her pocket, and walked out of the room, her heartbeat loud in her ears. That night, after Lisa fell asleep hugging her bear in the guest bed, Angela went downstairs. The house was quiet. The only light came from the kitchen, where Alan sat at the island with a glass of water, a laptop open but idle in front of him. He looked up when she entered. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She set the folded paper on the counter between them. He didn't need to open it to know what it was. His shoulders sagged. "So you know," he said. "You signed it," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," he said. Anger flared in her chest. "I lost my job," she said. "Then my apartment. I went nights without eating so Lisa could have something. I almost..." She couldn't finish the sentence. He looked at her hand, at the way her fingers unconsciously covered the inside of her wrist. "I didn't know it was you," he said quietly. "That doesn't make it better," she said. "No," he agreed, "it doesn't." He swallowed. "The day I signed that list," he said, "it was a spreadsheet. Numbers, columns. I told myself it was about survival. If we cut here, we could save there. If we saved there, we could keep the company alive. I thought if the company lived, jobs would come back. Opportunities. I thought any damage would be temporary." "Temporary," she repeated, the word bitter on her tongue. He rubbed a hand over his face. "I've done a very good job of keeping the consequences abstract," he said. "I sit in a glass box and I move people around like pieces. I tell myself if I don't, someone else will. That at least I'm thinking of the long term." "And are you," she asked, "thinking of the long term when you walk past us, when Lisa had to beg for help?" "I didn't walk past," he said. "Not this time." "That doesn't erase the times you did," she shot back. He flinched. "No," he said, "it doesn't." Silence stretched between them. He turned his glass in his hands, watching the water catch the light. "Do you think you're the only one I hurt?" he asked quietly. "There are hundreds of names on that list. Thousands over the years. I don't know what happened to them." "I didn't want to know." "Then why us?" she asked. "Why take us in guilt pity?" He looked up at her. "Fear," he said, "of watching someone else die in the rain because I didn't move fast enough." He hesitated. "Lena, my fiancée, died in a car accident," he said. "It was raining. She called. I was in a meeting. I told myself I'd call her back after. By the time I did, it was a nurse answering her phone. Angela's anger cooled a degree, replaced by something like recognition. A different kind of loss, but loss all the same. I spent a long time thinking if I just hardened, he continued, if I focused on numbers and results, I wouldn't feel that kind of helplessness again. I could control things. I could keep the company alive and tell myself that meant I was saving people, not hurting them. He gestured toward the paper. That's the story I told myself, he said. It was a lie. Angela's throat tightened. I'm sorry for what happened to her, she said, but your grief doesn't cancel mine. It doesn't feed my kid or pay her doctor or fix the nights I thought she'd be better off without me. I know, he said. His voice was rough. I came here to say thank you, she said, for the hospital, for the roof, for the soup. I came here to tell you it, and I did. It's still true. She drew a shaky breath. But I can't stay, she added. Not when this, she tapped, the paper is on your conscience and mine. You don't have to go, he said. She shook her head. If I stay, I'm teaching Lisa that the man who hurt us is the same man we depend on to survive, she said. I won't build her world on that kind of fault line. He looked like she'd slapped him. I want to make it right, he said. Not just with you, with whoever I can. A fund, training, housing assistance, something, do it, she said. For them, for yourself, but not because you think I'll stay as some kind of proof that you're fixed. Her eyes softened a fraction. You've been kind, she said. I won't forget that, but I also won't forget this. She tapped the sheet again. He nodded slowly. When he asked, tomorrow, she said, after breakfast. Her gaze drifted to the refrigerator. Lisa's drawing was stuck there with a magnet. 3 figures beneath a roof. The words, maybe our home, scrawled in wobbly letters. Angela's leave-taking note joined it the next morning. Thank you for the warm nights, she wrote. And they walked out. Lisa's small hand tucked in hers, the bear pressed against her chest. The motel room smelled of stale air and lemon cleaner. 2 narrow beds, 1 window, blinds bent in a few places. A TV bolted to the wall, its screen a little too dark. Angela sat on the edge of the nearest bed, hands loose between her knees. Lisa lay on her stomach on the other, coloring in a dog with a crayon that had seen better days. Did we do something wrong? Lisa asked suddenly, not looking up. Angela's chest hurt. No, baby, she said. We didn't do anything wrong. Then why did we leave? Lisa asked. Because sometimes, Angela searched for words. Sometimes grown-ups need to figure out what kind of people they want to be. And sometimes they need to do that without hurting each other more. Lisa thought about that. Do you miss the big kitchen? She asked. A little, Angela admitted. Do you miss Mr. Allen? Lisa asked, finally lifting her gaze. Angela hesitated. Yes, she said softly. Oh, the God, I do. Lisa nodded as if this confirmed something she'd suspected. I drew something, she said, rolling off the bed and rummaging in her backpack. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it over. Angela opened it. 3 figures again. The house was smaller this time. The words at the bottom read, maybe next time we stay. Tears blurred Angela's vision. She hugged her daughter, holding her tight. In the big stone house across town, Alan stood in the kitchen, staring at the empty refrigerator door. The drawing was gone. The magnet was the only thing left. He picked it up, weighing it in his palm, then set it down. The house echoed when he moved. He wandered down the hallway to the greenhouse door. For the first time in years, he turned the handle. The door creaked, protesting, then opened. The air inside was different now. Where there had been only dead leaves and brittle stems, there was motion, new soil, small green shoots poking up, a couple of sturdy little plants in mismatched pots. Signs of someone trying. He stepped inside. The floor was still uneven under his feet. The glass panes still streaked. But the place no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a pause, a between. He stood in the middle of the space Lena had loved, surrounded by the beginnings of a different life, and let himself finally fully feel the weight of what he'd done to her, to Angela, to all the invisible names, For a long time, he just stood. For a man used to moving quickly, to solving problems with decisive action, the stillness was a strange kind of torture. It was also necessary. The board meeting was exactly as he'd expected. Polished table, suits, water bottles lined up like little soldiers, charts on the screen at the end of the room. Post-merger, we anticipate a 12% increase in EBITDA, the CFO droned, assuming we maintain our current cost structure. About that, Alan said. Heads turned. He clicked his remote. A different slide appeared. Not a graph. A list. Renter support. Job retraining. Emergency housing. Mental health services. What's this? A board member asked, frowning. A fund? Alan said. For employees we've laid off over the last 2 years. And for those we'll have to let go in the next phase. We've benefited from their labor. We can at least make sure they don't end up on the street while we talk about shareholder value. We already provide severance, the CFO said sharply. Severance runs out, Alan said. Rent doesn't. Illness doesn't. Children don't stop needing food because our spreadsheet says the support period is over. This will be expensive, another board member said. It will hit earnings and it will hit ego, a third muttered. We'll look soft. Indecisive. Alan listened to them, to the words he would have once used himself. He thought of Angela shaking in the rain, of Lisa's hand in his, of the scar on Angela's wrist. I'd rather look soft than be hollow, he said. We can handle a smaller bonus pool if it means fewer people sleeping in cars. There was a murmur of disbelief. You're talking about changing the culture of this company, the CFO said. We're not a charity. No, Alan said, we're not. That's why we can afford to help the people we harm along the way. If you push this, shareholders may question your leadership. A board member warned, they want hard decisions, not handouts. Alan met his gaze. Then they can question it, he said. My leadership is the reason we're sitting on a pile of cash big enough to do this in the first place. If they want someone who can sleep at night while employees freeze, they can find another face for the cover stories. Silence. He felt strangely calm. He was risking something: his reputation, his grip on the company, the persona he'd built as the man who always delivered. But for once, the risk felt honest. When the meeting ended, nothing was finalized. There would be committees, discussions, negotiations, but the fund had a name now and a line in the budget proposal. It was a start. Finding Angela again turned out to be harder than he expected. HR could tell him which address she'd listed on her last forms. By the time he got there, the apartment had a new tenant. The motel records showed she'd paid for only a few nights. People at the soup kitchen had seen a woman with a little girl and a one-eyed bear, but they didn't know where she'd gone. It was Lisa who saw him first. Alan was crossing a street, lost in thought, when a bus pulled up to the curb with a hiss of brakes. Voices murmured inside. The doors folded open. Through the fog glass, a small hand pressed against the window. Mommy Lisa's voice was muffled, but urgent. Look, it's Mr. Allen. Angela's head turned. For a second, she thought she was seeing things. Then the shape solidified, the familiar coat, the way he held himself, shoulders slightly hunched as if trying to shrink inside a frame too tall. The driver frowned when the stoplight changed, and neither she nor her daughter moved. Are you getting off? He asked. Please, she said, just a second. The doors hissed shut again as the bus pulled away. Wait, Lisa cried. Alan looked up, realizing. He broke into a run. At the next stop, the driver relented and let them off for a moment. Alan reached them on the sidewalk, breathing harder than he wanted to admit. Hi, he said. It was not the grand speech he'd imagined. Lisa flung herself at him, wrapping small arms around his waist. You found us, she said. Actually, he said, trying to catch his breath. You found me. Angela stood a few feet away, cautious. You look tired, she said. So do you, he replied. They stared at each other for a heartbeat. The city moving around them, honks, footsteps, the smell of exhaust and rain on concrete. I've been looking for you, he said. I figured, she said. Your HR called me 3 times. I didn't answer. He grimaced. Can't blame you, he said. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. This isn't a contract, he said quickly. It's a letter. I wanted to say some things without stuttering through them. He held it out. She took it, hesitated, then opened it. His handwriting was surprisingly neat. Angela, I have made a career out of believing that if the numbers worked, the story would take care of itself. That if the company survived, the people it cast off would somehow be okay. Meeting you and Lisa showed me what those stories leave out. I can't erase the day I signed your name on that layoff list. I can't erase the nights you went hungry, or the night in the rain, or the scar you carry. I wish I could. What I can do is this. I've started a fund for people like you, people we've laid off, people who fall through the cracks. It's real. It has a budget line and a plan. I would like you to help design it, if you're willing. You understand what I never bothered to ask. And if you and Lisa are tired of running, I would like you to come back into the house. Not as a charity case, not as a debt I have to pay, as the reason that place feels like something other than a mausoleum. My house stopped being a home the night Lena died. I've kept it as a monument to what I lost. Maybe it's time it becomes a place for what I could still have. If you say no, I will understand. I will still run the fund. I will still try to be better than the man who signed that paper. But if you say yes, I will try, every day, to be someone you don't have to forgive for existing. Alan. Angela read it twice. Lisa watched her, eyes flicking between her mother's face and Alan's. Well, Lisa asked, impatience bubbling under her voice. Can we go home now? Angela's throat tightened. This isn't simple, she said. Lisa frowned. Do you still like him? She asked. Even if he did a bad thing, Angela looked at Alan. He looked back, not pleading, just waiting. I don't know what I feel, she said honestly, but I know he's trying to fix what he broke. That has to count for something. She folded the letter carefully. If we come back, she said to Alan, I won't let Lisa grow up thinking we're guests who can be kicked out when the numbers change. You won't be, he said. I need to work, she continued. Not just in your house, in your fund. I've been on the wrong side of a layoff. I know what people actually need. I won't put my name on something that's just PR. Good, he said. If it's only PR, I'll need someone to tell me so. She drew a breath. Then we'll come, she said. On those terms, Lisa squealed. Does that mean yes? She asked. Yes, Angela said. The driver honked, impatient. We should move, Alan said. We don't have tickets for your car, Lisa pointed out. He smiled. Today we take the bus, he said. You can show me how it works. They climbed aboard together. The ride back to the mansion was bumpy, the seats cracked, the air thick. But for the first time in a long time, Angela didn't feel like she was moving away from something. She felt tentatively like she was moving toward it. The house felt different when they returned. Maybe nothing had changed, the same stone, the same high ceilings, the same careful decor, but the air seemed warmer somehow. Lisa headed straight for the kitchen, checking that the refrigerator was still there, that the magnet still clung. She pulled a new drawing from her backpack and slapped it onto the metal. This one had 4 figures, not 3. Who's the extra one? Alan asked. That's the lady in the garden, Lisa said. The one Mr. Alan loved before. She can watch us. Angela's breath caught. That's a lot to put on a stick figure, Buddy. Honey, she murmured. It's okay, Lisa said. She looks nice. Later, they sat around the kitchen table. House rules, Alan said. I think we need some. Lisa's eyes sparkled. Like no dessert before dinner, she asked. Wary. Like this, he said. Rule 1, no one eats dinner alone. Not in their office, not on the couch. Here, together. I like that one, Lisa said quickly. Angela nodded. Rule 2, he continued. We don't lie about being okay. We can say, I don't want to talk about it right now, but not I'm fine if we're not. Angela's gaze met his. She held it. Brave, she said. He shrugged. Rule 3, he said. Lisa gets to say what she thinks, even if it's uncomfortable, within reason. Lisa grinned. I already do that, she said. I've noticed, he replied. They wrote the rules down on a piece of paper and stuck it on the fridge beside her drawing. At the office, the fun slowly took shape. Angela came in twice a week at first, then more. She sat in conference rooms that had once decided her fate without her input and said things like, "This form is useless, and no one can pay rent on that timeline. And you're designing this for your conscience, not their real lives." It was hard. It was also the first time she'd felt useful in a way that mattered. Alan watched her argue with HR and legal and PR and felt something in him relax. The fund was no longer just his apology. It was a tool sharpened by someone who knew where it needed to cut. At home, the greenhouse transformed. Angela and Lisa planted herbs and cheap seeds and cuttings donated by a neighbor. The first time Alan stepped inside with them and didn't flinch, Lisa reached for his hand and tugged him toward a pot of small green shoots. "What's this?" he asked. "Basil," Angela said. "If it lives, we'll put it in the sauce. If it dies, we'll try again." He nodded. "Seems fair," he said. On Lisa's next birthday, the house was full, not of rich strangers in suits, but of people she actually knew, neighbors. A teacher from school, a couple of employees from the fund office, Mark from security who always had a lollipop in his pocket. String lights crisscrossed the backyard. A small cake sat on a table, candles ready. Lisa wore a dress that fit properly and sneakers she could run in. She ran through the grass, around the chairs, in and out of the greenhouse, where potted flowers brushed her legs and the air smelled like damp soil and new life. The greenhouse door was propped open. A small wooden sign hung beside it. "For what we lost, for what we found." After the cake was cut, after Lisa blew out the candles making 3 wishes, she announced, "Because I'm turning 6, so that's half. And half is fair," Alan caught Angela's eye. "Come with me," he said. They walked away from the chatter, the music, the fairy lights, out the side gate to the quiet street beyond. A car waited. Not the Bentley, a smaller one. "Where are we going?" Angela asked. "To introduce you to someone," he said. The cemetery was on a hill overlooking the city. Rows of headstones, trees whispering in the breeze. The sky washed with fading pink. Alan led her to a grave marked by a simple stone. Elena Maris, beloved daughter, friend, fiancée. She loved things that grew. He stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets. "I haven't brought anyone here in a long time," he said. "Not even my parents. I told myself that keeping this place secret would keep the memories intact, untouched." He looked at the stone, then at Angela. "It just kept me alone," he said. Angela reached for his hand. He let her take it. "Lena," he said, voice low. "This is Angela and her daughter, Lisa. They make the house loud and messy and alive." He swallowed. "I thought loving someone again would be a betrayal," he admitted. "But holding on to you so tightly that I let everyone else slip away, that was the real betrayal. To what you wanted for me. For them." Angela squeezed his fingers. "You're not replacing her," she said softly. "You're just continuing." Tears stung his eyes. He didn't blink them away. For a long time, they stood in the dusk. 3 people connected by a 4th who was no longer there. When they finally turned back toward the car, the city lights were coming on, one by one, below them. On the drive home, Lisa fell asleep in the back seat, head lolling, mouth slightly open. Angela twisted around to tuck a blanket around her. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" she asked quietly. Alan kept his eyes on the road. "Every day," he said. "I wish I hadn't signed that list. I wish I'd answered Lena's call sooner. I wish you and Lisa had never had to stand in the rain and hope a stranger would care." He paused. "But if things had been different," he said, "I might never have known you, or her, or the way it feels to walk into my own kitchen and see someone else's drawings on the fridge." Angela smiled faintly. "Do you regret that?" she asked. "Not for a second," he said. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable quiet. At home, the house welcomed them with warm light. Lisa woke just long enough to murmur, "Are we home?" before Angela carried her inside. Alan lingered on the front step for a moment, looking up at the windows. Once, this place had been a monument to what he'd lost. Now it was something messier, louder, more fragile, more real. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. In the kitchen, the house rules list fluttered slightly in the breeze from the open window. Beside it, Lisa's latest drawing showed the three of them in front of the greenhouse, flowers exploding in color around them. He smiled and, "Dinner," he called. From upstairs, Angela's voice floated down. "As long as you don't burn the toast," she said. Lisa's laughter followed. For the first time in a very long time, Alan Hawthorne felt something simple and solid settle in his chest. Not triumph, not control, not the numb calm of detachment. Just this: he was home, and this time, he wasn't alone.